All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's presentation. Worried about ransomware? Learn how to protect your business. You also see on this title slide here 2 of the Gartner logos. I just wanted to make quick mention of that. The one on the left, the Gartner 2015 Cool Vendor. So Gartner named Infrascale a cool vendor in business continuity and disaster recovery. And then also in 2016, on the right, you see we were Gartner Visionary on the Disaster Recovery as a Service Magic Quadrant. So just wanted to make quick note of that. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping announcements. First, there is a recording that is going to be available on infrascale.com/webinars. They'll be available within about 24 hours or less. And then I'm frequently asked if there is a copy of the slides available. There is a copy of the slides in the handouts. You should see that right there within the GoToWebinar software, so you can grab a copy of the slides as well as a few other reports and some pieces of information that I put in there for you, draft attitudes and adoption report, and also the Gartner report as well, and a ransomware guide, a ransomware survival guide. So that's all there for you. And then we'd love for you to join the conversation. You can follow us on Twitter at Infrascale, or you can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and you also have my contact information here, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my email, and I'd love to chat with you. So please do reach out if you have any questions. And then during the presentation, if you have questions or comments, you can use the question tool within GoToWebinar, and we will get to the Q&A at the very end of the presentation, but please do put those questions in throughout. So here is a look at the agenda. If anyone's not seeing the agenda up on their screen, please let me know in the question tool, and I will stop the screen share and start it again. But the agenda for today, first we're looking at the evolution of ransomware. We are taking a look at some of the best practices in order to prevent ransomware from happening to you. We're also going to talk about how to recover from an attack, so just those critical steps to take immediately in the case of a ransomware attack. And then Q&A with our senior sales engineer, Aaron Jordan, is going to be on the line. And so like I mentioned, get those questions in throughout the presentation, and we will be doing the Q&A at the very end. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get started with a definition, essentially, of ransomware. We want to have a really good understanding of what ransomware is, and then, of course, how to work against it. So ransomware it can take several different forms, but it's a type of malware that denies access to a device or files until a ransom's been paid. So it encrypts the user's files and then forces them, the hacker, in order to get their data back. Now, we've seen lots of changes in ransomware over time, so let's take a look at some of the evolution of ransomware. Now, even as early as 1986, 1989, like you see here on your screen, there essentially, since computers have been in use, programmers have been able to create these malicious softwares. Now, even earlier than these that you see here, back in 1971, the Creeper virus, that was one really early example of how quickly malware can spread through systems. And then the proliferation of malware moved at such an alarming rate. If you take a look at 2006 through to 2010, the high-speed encryption that came into play there, in 2007, as much malware was produced in that one single year than had been produced in the previous 20 years altogether, which is really scary how quickly that can change and move and grow. Then taking a look at the rise of Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency there, you see from 2014 to 2016. And then also if you take a look at Cryptolocker, Locky, CryptoWall, We're going to talk about all of those strains in just a minute here because there are so many strains and it is evolving so quickly. So where does that leave us right now? Well, there are two kinds of organizations out there, those that have been breached and those that have been breached but simply don't know it yet. Now let's look at some of those trends in ransomware. 2,900 new malware modifications were detected in just Q1 of 2016, only that first quarter of this year. And once that happens, since we know that ransomware gets activated by an end user, that one user lets it in and it starts modifying all the files on your system until you get a triggered message for a ransom demand. So then if you get one of those ransom demands, paying it is going to involve e-currency or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And we know that those hackers are getting away with it because of the amount of money paid in ransomware. But first, let's look at that second stat. 72% of ransomware victims were unable to access their data for 2 days. We actually saw this can get up to 5 days in other cases. And this is why, because once those hackers verify the payment, they provide the decryptor software, and then the computer starts the long process of decrypting all your files. So the fastest response times until you're back up and running take about 2 days, and that can, like I just mentioned, take up to 5 days in other cases. And then, like I just mentioned as well, we know they're getting away with it because of the amount of money paid in ransom. So over $200 million has been paid in ransom in the first 3 months of 2016. Compare that to all of 2015. $25 million was paid in ransom in all of 2015. Now here is a look at some of those ransom screen demands, right? Now, one big problem is you have no idea for weeks or months that this is happening. And ransomware works slowly. It starts with old files on your system based on the last date opened or the last date modified. And then you see one of these triggered demands. Now, once the files are encrypted, the hackers display a screen like this. It's explaining how to pay to unlock your files, how much needs to be paid, how to go ahead and pay that. Now, ransoms started in the $300 to $500 range, but fast forward to 2016, and companies now are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars. Plus, the ransoms often increase as the hours pass. So if you don't respond, then they're upping the amount that you need to pay to them. So on top of that, look at all the different strains of ransomware. And this isn't not all of the strains. This is just a small example here that I've taken to share with you. But a couple of these are getting more and more dangerous. So this is why. So first, Cryptolocker is one. Cryptolocker is targeting computers running on Windows, and it appears to have been spreading through fake emails. Now, the fake emails, of course, are designed to look like legitimate businesses. I've even gotten some in my inbox that appear to be from FedEx or UPS, and they're tracking notices. Ransom32 is another that is really scary. It effectively puts the power to create ransomware into the hands of just about anyone. And there are many others out there as well. Locky is another. Locky is one that we've heard of quite a bit recently. And it renames all of your important files. They then have the extension .locky, and then of course only the hackers have that encryption key. But Locky is really a game changer when it comes to ransomware. So we're going to take just a minute to talk a little bit more about Locky. It is a really important one. Now, Locky first we saw first started attacking businesses throughout Europe, Japan, New Zealand, Australia. They were all hit with these massive email spam campaigns. So some of those, yes, attempting to be legitimate businesses, attempting those FedEx or UPS tracking notices. Also, with Locky, it targets businesses specifically. And then even here at home recently, Amazon.com was targeted with one of those massive phishing campaigns. It was estimated that about 30 to 100 million spam messages were sent out, and they were carrying that malicious JavaScript that it installs the Locky ransomware. So they were claiming to be an Amazon.com shopping order update. And then, of course, here's where the bigger problem sets in. That one user, the Locky starts encrypting files on that one workstation, but then it can travel across the network, and it, of course, can make use of that Wi-Fi connection. It can transfer onto other users and the network drives, and so one single Locky infected user can bring an entire organization to a halt. Now, what do you do if you get infected? And more importantly, how do you prevent one of these attacks from happening? Well, here's how you know if you're infected. Here are some of the very clear symptoms, right? You suddenly can't open your normal files. Maybe a window has opened with one of those ransom demands. If the program that you are running warns you that there's a countdown until your ransom increases, or maybe talks about decrypting your files. Or if you see files and directories that have been renamed, how to decrypt files, decrypt instructions, etc., etc. So if you do experience some of these symptoms and you know you're infected, first and foremost, you just want to remove the infected machine from the network. So these are the steps to take immediately if you do get infected, and then we're going to talk about how to work against ransomware and how to prevent attacks. So remove that infected machine, right? You want to stop the malware from spreading. You always need to assume that it is making use of that network communication and network connection. So you want to stop all network communication from the spread of that ransomware. And then next, reset your BIOS time. In some instances, you can reset the BIOS time to stop the clock. So it's going to give you more time to prepare your backups, prepare your recovery. And according to Privacy PC, IT admins don't need to be afraid of that ransomware countdown timer if you just set your BIOS time back. Then third, roll back from a previous backup. And I'm seeing some comments come through. One of the comments that just came through says, one of our customers was hit last Friday by one of the newest versions of ransomware. It is a nightmare, but we recovered. How did you recover from it? And more importantly, how did you catch that it happened on Friday? And how far back did you have to roll back if you recovered your data? How much data was actually lost in that event? I'm very curious to hear. And then while we wait for those comments to come through, third, of course, roll back from a previous backup or image. So that is your best chance, if you are hit right now with ransomware, is to restore operations as quickly and painlessly as possible. But let's talk about how to work against ransomware. Now that we have a really clear understanding of what it is, how it works, how it actually gets into your systems, and we know what to do about it on an emergency basis, let's talk about how to proactively work against ransomware and really get you a set of best practices in place. So in order to avoid ransomware, backup and disaster recovery can protect you, but only if you do it right. So we're going to talk about a couple of different ways to do it right here. Now, these screenshots are a couple of screenshots from my backup and recovery account with Infrascale. You can see all of these files and folders that are on my desktop and everything that I'm backing up on my machine. By default, Infrascale keeps everything. So I have every version ever backed up. Even if I wanted to go back to, in this example, May of 2011, I could do that. So that's a really important point. By default, Infrascale keeps everything. So the importance of that forever archiving is critical. Most BDR systems will age content out after a few weeks, after maybe a month, but ransomware can take months to get into your systems discreetly. So it's not just the idea of having any old backup system in place, but you need a backup system with that forever archiving component built right in. Now, my Infrascale account isn't just the software on my machine. Here's a snapshot of my dashboard, and my dashboard provides a unified management console where from here I can view activity alerts, I can access reporting and monitoring, I can monitor account usage, manage retention settings. So all this power right at my fingertips, and it doesn't require VPN access. I can log in from any browser, even a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone, and I can access all this data. Now here is a really, really cool picture from the dashboard. One of the settings here in the dashboard is an account level details page. So in this page, I can view analytics of essentially all the details of which machine has the most changes and other analytics within each of my locations and machines. So this new alert that we created is based off of the account level details tab. And so what we did is we created a new monitoring alert, and we call it Anomaly Detection. So if you have a large number of newly modified files, the Anomaly Detection alert is going to kick in, and you're going to receive an alert as the admin. The admin will receive the alert. And then you can go and investigate to see what's happening and consider that it might be ransomware, of course. So let's take a look at anomaly detection in action and see really how it works and why it's so important. Now again, what we did is we took analytics to create a brand new monitoring alert, and that alert is going to trigger if you have an unusually large backup set. And we'll talk about why that's so important in just a minute here. Let's look at how anomaly detection works in action. So you simply go up to the monitoring tab, and under monitoring you can see here that on the monitoring page you'll see enable anomaly detection settings. And then what we do is essentially calculate a rolling average number of modified files. And that works over time for each device. So you can set this threshold right here. Now, if the modified file count for a backup passes your predetermined threshold, then we release a warning. Now that warning automatically appears in the general monitoring page, and then if you're subscribing to error alerts, you get an email alert as well. You can then open here in the details. You just saw backup duration, total files processed, how many files were modified, all that detailed goodness. You can download the logs if you select the manage action here, and then you can investigate at a file level. So typical users, they've seen backups of maybe 5 to 10 modified files per day. A lot of work is done online, and that's generally what we've been seeing on average. But anything 3 to 4 times that is going to be cause for investigation. And this is critical because nobody has this proactive alerting. None of the BDR solutions out there today have this, and everyone's just waiting to get infected and then quickly trying to scramble to either pay the ransom or roll back to a previous date. So that really that's not a scalable solution, and that's not going to work long term. So let's take another look at how to avoid ransomware through disaster recovery as a service. What if backup isn't enough? Well, that's where DRAS comes in, disaster recovery as a service with push button failover. And essentially this is how it works. It allows disaster recovery to be on demand, and this is a scenario where you could use it. So here are some end users just working as normal, and unknown to them, they're about to experience a ransomware attack or any type of outage. This could be a hardware failure, human error, it could be software failure, it could be a natural disaster. So any type of outage and any type of ransomware. So with disaster recovery on demand with push button failover, you can simply log in from any browser, like I mentioned, even from a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. You can instantly virtualize and recover a clean version of the entire environment. So everyone then keeps working, and this whole process, we guarantee it to happen in 15 minutes or less. Now here is a closer look at that. So on the left, we have cloud backup, which we've talked about, and then on the right, we have DRES, which we just introduced. So let's take a look at the differences and a more detailed way of seeing how each works. So in the traditional backup flow, you have your production box and then the backup server next to it. Now here we see that if the data is being copied, and that can be copied over to any offsite storage. It could be copying to the cloud. It could be maybe on-prem disk or tape drives. But when that disaster strikes or when that ransomware alert comes in, you then have to copy that data again. And after you wait for that to happen, you then have to reconfigure, reboot. All of this takes a lot of time. So your recovery time objective there, it ends up being days. And that brings back the point that we were talking about in the beginning. It can take 2 to 5 days to recover in some cases. So let's take a look at DRES on the right, a very fast recovery in comparison. So of course you have there, and then we don't want to worry about moving data back and forth, copying data, then moving it again or copying it again twice. And so we eliminate all of that with push button failover, and we can guarantee you recover in 15 minutes or less. And now normally it takes maybe 60 seconds, 90 seconds, but we do guarantee that 15-minute time for you. And then a quick note on encryption as well. We take security very seriously, and we, instead of sending raw files to the cloud, we use this double-blind encryption system, which is best practice in comparison to other vendors out there. So what we do is encryption locally, in transit, and at rest, and that's really the only way to guarantee that your data is truly secure. In addition to that encryption, Infrascale is a true end-to-end solution. We offer protection for all servers, workstations, and endpoints, unlimited archiving, and also with that proactive alerting, so that anomaly detection that we just saw in action. Unlimited test recoveries, so then you can ensure that all the policies you've set are working exactly as you expect them to. And then 24/7 support, and this is 365 days per year. We have US-based phone support. Now, what we haven't touched on is pricing, right? So how much does this actually cost? Well, like we've mentioned, Infrascale delivers cloud-backed DR as a service, DRAS, at the price point of backup. And here's a comparison that we did with a couple of other vendors out there just to show you what we found. So this comparison was with Barracuda, Unitrends, Datto, and Infrascale. And this is an apples-to-apples comparison. So we took 10 terabytes, disaster recovery, and 3 years of cloud backup. And we did this across all these vendors. And what you can see is that with Infrascale, you save up to 70% in comparison. So it truly is an affordable solution for your business. And we are able to deliver on-demand failover at the price of backup. Now here's a more detailed comparison as well. Again, here we're taking a couple of other vendors that you see out there. So we took a look at Axient, Datto, Barracuda, Unitrends, and then you see Infrascale on the right here. And we just took a look at all of the critical criteria that you should be looking at when you're evaluating these solutions. So is it affordable? Does it offer cloud spillover? Is there complete coverage for me? Do I have push button failover? Is the encryption and security at a level that I need? And then what about the recovery time? Of course, the cost there at the bottom, like we just showed you, and so again, you can see that Infrascale is an extremely affordable solution for you. So as a quick recap, Infrascale guarantees system failover from any disaster in 15 minutes or less at a fraction of the cost. Our mission is to eradicate downtime and data loss, and while of course we can't eradicate the causes of downtime and data loss, what we do is aim to make it just as simple for you as possible and get you back up and running as quickly as possible. So here's a look at our global coverage. Infrascale protects thousands of businesses globally. We're protecting over 50,000 customers through our over 900 partners, and we're doing that with 16 globally dispersed data centers throughout the world. So then in turn, you can see we are protecting over 1 million devices, and that's growing each day. Over 100 petabytes of data is protected in our global grid here. So the next steps for you here, I want to thank you all for joining us for this presentation. And now that we've seen all of the details, we know ransomware is the #1 cybersecurity threat. And I want to offer everyone on the line here today 60 days free of our enterprise cloud backup solution, which is going to be your #1 defense. So if you'd like to take advantage of that 60 days free to get set up and test it out for yourself and get going right away, use the question tool and take advantage of this offer. Just write 60 days free and we'll go ahead and get you started. So let's see here. See lots of comments coming through for the 60 days free. And Yosef, yep, we'll get you set up with that. Brian, no problem. We will set you up immediately. Chris, I see that note that you're sending through. We will get that taken care of, so you'll be set up with your 60 days free this week. And then a reminder as well, get your questions in. We are going to come to the Q&A next with our senior sales engineer, Aaron Jordan. So I'll give everyone a moment to get their 60-day free request in. And then I do have one quick poll that I'm going to launch as well. So I'm going to first launch that quick poll. So you guys should see that coming up on your screen. Simply asking, would you like to hear more about DRAS and failover DR or ransomware from Infrascale? Yes, I want to learn more about Infrascale's failover DRAS. Yes, educational ransomware or BDR info would be helpful. Or no, not yet, maybe later. So I'll give everyone a moment to answer there. So far we have 57% of you have voted. We'll give everyone another minute to vote here. We've got 80% of you have voted, so let's leave that open for just one more moment and then we will dive into the Q&A. All right, I'm going to close this poll down. Thanks guys so much for participating. So we should just be back on the screen share now, and I will leave that up so that you guys can make sure to take advantage of that 60 days free. All right, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Aaron Jordan, our senior sales engineer, for the Q&A. Over to you, Aaron.
All right, thank you for that, Carla. So guys, as I answer some of these questions, please feel free to continue to ask as we go along and to make sure they get your questions answered. Also, if you have more detailed questions and you'd like to go in more detail from what you hear, you're more than welcome to reach out to Carla at team@infrascale.com or put in the 60 days free, and we're happy to do a demo for you and run through your personal questions or whatever the site, like if you're deploying this for a client site, we can take that into example and then run you through this. With that being said, I'm going to just start diving into these questions. So I see, what is your support like? Do you offer 24/7 support? So yeah, we have 24/7 stateside support. It's also 365, so regardless of the holiday, we have somebody on staff. The support is not California, it's stateside based. We have half the staff in LA and the other staff in Salt Lake City. You can email, ticket, live chat, phone support. All of that has a 1-hour SLA, regardless of the time of day or night. So you'll get some kind of response within an hour as soon as you reach out to us. So we do have a pretty stellar support. It says, are there any coverage costs in the cloud as limits are met? And if I go over capacity, is my data not backed up? So if you go over capacity, we'll actually notify you as you get close and as you go over, and we'll work with you. We want to make sure that you're not missing out on that important data. If you willfully ignore those warnings, then it will cease after a time period. But you'll also continue to get notifications saying why it ceased. So you will be notified. But initially we let it go through just to make sure. And I should also mention too, any versions that will continue to go through. So if you have a version change of a file, then that will go through. And the reason is because we offer unlimited versioning. So once you have a file up, it'll always be able to push up a version, and that doesn't cost you anything extra. How does the appliance throttle bandwidth or your DR throttle bandwidth usage during production times? So there's actually quality of service tools built into the appliance where you can keep from saturating your network by setting speeds and time frames to block those speeds. But more importantly, we have a solution built into our DR solution called DDFSAR, and I can talk more about that later in a private call. But the long story short is it prevents you from having to send unnecessary data to the secondary site by making sure that blocks that already exist, regardless of where the blocks come from, like maybe other machines, are already on the cloud and therefore prevent you from having to resend redundant data. How many points of presence do you have in the world? So 16 points of presence. We have half of them alone are in the United States, or rather in North America. Got about 7 in the United States. So wherever you're at, we've got you covered with the data center. It's regionally dispersed, so you don't have to worry about a hurricane hitting Florida and then you not having data because for some reason it went up to the Gulf of Mexico and hit up Texas and they're out, but you still have California. So there's a lot of data centers we've got. All the data centers I should mention are Tier 4 or Tier 3 data centers. So they're Sarbanes Oxley SAS 70 SSAE 16 certified. They comply with ISO 27001, 2, and 3, along with having CGIS certified data centers. So that's basically to say if you have any government agency data, even up to government data like top secret data, we have a data center that can support and maintain that data, and you will be completely compliant out of the box. No special thing that you have to do. We will cover that for you. Is the backup real time, or can we determine the frequency of each server, when each server is backed up and snapshotted? So yeah, so we have our agent-based solution can be real time. It'll monitor the changes as they come up, and it's called Live Protect. And you can specifically look for individual files or folders to live protect as things change. We also have the ability to do incrementals at any point in time as frequently as you need. So if you have a SQL database that you need every 15 minutes or a file set that you need every 5 minutes, yeah, no problem, we can handle that. Noting the only limitations are, generally speaking, the resources on your machine. So we can request it, we can pull it, and we can encrypt it and compress it. It's just a matter of your machine getting it over to us fast enough. So oftentimes the bottlenecks that we see are on end user size on their machines. So we can make that go quite efficiently, quite quickly. can VMs be backed up on a host level, or do I need an agent? So we actually have host level support for VMware and Hyper-V. For physical boxes, we do have agent-based support, and that will cover the gamut from everything from every version of Linux, every version of Windows, Mac, HPUX, Novell NetWare, AIX, Solaris, both the x86 and Sun versions, or Spark versions, excuse me. We also have FreeBSD and OpenServer as well. So just to name the majority of our compatible clients. So that also allows you to back up everything from SQL servers or SQL-based servers like Microsoft SQL, even Exchange. We have native agents for that. And of course, we also have the ability to run scripts within the DRAS solution to pick up any kind of database you might have, like Oracle, so you can run RMAN scripts, MySQL, Postgres, Progress, Mongo, whatever you got, we can back it up, no problem. Any other questions, guys? What kind of storage considerations should I have? So here's the good news. We sell this product as a service, so we're going to actually already have that all figured out. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you fill out this sheet that's going to tell us, describe your environment, and it's going to ask things like, how much do you have today? What's the expected growth rate? What kind of solutions are you running? Then I'm going to take that information, and then from there, I'm going to go ahead and build out a box. And that box isn't going to be what affects your cost. The only thing that affects your cost is what you're licensing. So if you need 4 terabytes, but you have a major database, the engineers will actually throw in extra RAM as part of the service. So think of our product as a service. You just tell us how much you need to protect and what your rate of growth is, and I'll put you in a box that will satisfy all your needs to ensure that you can get full, complete disaster recovery regardless of what you happen to be running. So that's actually one of the most amazing things with our service. And I should say, while we're on the topic, if you replicate to our cloud, your cloud, all the resources are included as well. So if you have an extra need for additional compute, more RAM, more CPU, what's the bandwidth? We cover the bandwidth. Connectivity, as many connections as you need, whether you need site-to-site VPN or agent-based MSI deployed VPN, or even an MPLS line to terminate to your data center. All these options are available. So I think to learn more about that, you should definitely reach out to us. We can go on a case-by-case basis and ensure that the clients that you're deploying to or yourself are getting what they require, not what they're hoping to get. Any other questions, guys?
All right. Thank you guys for being here today. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Aaron, for answering all those questions in that Q&A. So again, if you want to take advantage of that 60 days free, just go ahead and type that into the question tool there. I see lots more requests coming through here. Jeffrey says, please set me up also. Warren says 60 days free. So we will get you guys set up and running with that. And again, thank you for joining, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.